We do it each and every week. This is the only show devoted to amateur baseball. And whether you're listening on MLB Network Radio on Sirius XM or watching on Perfect Game TV or the brand new Perfect Game TV app, it's everywhere. Apple TV, your iOS, your Android. Go download it. We're glad to have you watching there on the app as well. This is MLB Roundtrip with Perfect Game. We love our partnership, certainly with Sirius XM and MLB Network Radio. Here's where we're going this week. We've got a unique perspective, certainly one of the top athletes in the game. We'll talk about him in a second. But we've got an 0-2 World Series rematch. Benji Gill, Angels, Scott Eyre, San Francisco Giants. And it's fun because they're both giving back now as coaches. Benji Gill, the manager, professionally in Mexico. Tomateros de Cagliano, and Scott Eyre, an assistant coach, a pitching coach at Landrum High School. Darren Larson is growing the game like crazy in Texas, one of the great event organizers for all that goes on there, a brand new VP with Perfect Game. As a matter of fact, we're coming off an event that PG put together between 6 and 14U that had nearly 700 teams. Incredible. And you saw the last name there, Jac Caglianone on that graphic. Where does Jack go in the draft? This is a guy, well, you'll just have to listen to the interview. You won't believe how hard he is throwing now from the left side. Plant High School, Tampa, Florida, San Francisco Giants scout team, FTB, his travel team, a Perfect Game All-American. We'll check in with him. And we've got some other surprises as well for you that will be sneaking onto the airwaves, and so you'll enjoy those. Folks, this is the only show devoted to amateur baseball. My name's Darren Sutton. Always honored you take time to spend time with us. Maybe step away from the ballpark for just a moment before you get right back. This is MLB Roundtrip with Perfect Game.
You can tell right away if it's going to be a good glove or not. Broken and good, so when it breaks in nice, you want to use it for years. And I got the gold on it now. If you're into it mentally, you're getting your pre-pitch routine, defense doesn't slump. It doesn't come and go like offense. If you lock it in mentally, it's going to be there.
MLB Roundtrip with Perfect Game. You're listening, obviously, on MLB Network Radio, and you're having an opportunity to get to know the future of the game through the eyes of some who have been through it already. Benji Gill, Tomateros de Caglianone as a manager, a very successful one, but you may know him as a dynamic amateur coming into pro ball a generation ago, as a Ranger, as an Angel, as such a successful player, as a world champion. But now we know him as a dad as well, impacting his son who is journeying up the ranks, still just 20 years old. And I'm really excited to spend time with Benji now. We were reminiscing before we started this interview about the old days. Benji still looks young. I'm certainly old. There's no doubt about that. But reminiscing
I don't know about all that.
reminiscing about the times where Benji was racing around, winning a World Series title, doing big things in Anaheim. But I want to go back. For the sake of this show, Benji, it's always fun for our athletes to hear athletes that have succeeded like you. Now you lead athletes as a manager. But I want you to take me back to some of your early memories of amateur baseball, whether it be, your family moving to the San Diego area and you played there, but a lot of your youth in amateur baseball, especially when you got to be junior high and high school, was actually back down across the border in Mexico, where you played in men's leagues. You played up quite a bit. So kind of walk me through, anecdotally, 2 or 3 strong memories of your amateur baseball career.
Yeah. When I was about I always played Little League in Tijuana, Mexico. And when I was about 15, I started playing the adult leagues after my year 14 and started playing against adults. It was kind of interesting playing against my buddies' older brothers or uncles, and in some cases, maybe even their dads. So it was pretty interesting. But one memory that I would like to share with you guys is I was in 1987, so I was 15. It was in the fall of '87, after the major league season, and one day we were just playing. I don't even remember the name of the team, but Jesse Orozco, who lived in San Diego, came down to throw an inning or two. I don't remember if it was an inning or two, but I got to face him, and I was a huge Mets fan, and it had been a little bit more than a year had passed, maybe 13, 14 months since I had seen him save Game 7 of my favorite team. So I got to face him. I didn't get a hit. I didn't strike out. I think I flew out, but it was a pretty big deal for me as a 15-year-old to face Jesse Orozco when a year earlier he was getting the last out of the 86 World Series. Very cool.
So that's an incredible memory when you think about it, Benji, because that, if I'm not mistaken, is your freshman year in high school, right? So we talk about freshmen, your son went through it, maybe playing in a 17U team when he's 15. You played against a World Series champ when you were 15. How cool were those experiences? How lucky were you to go and play in Tijuana, to have that experience that, quite honestly, not a lot of athletes will ever have?
Yeah, it was pretty awesome, man. To be honestly, I mean, I was in awe of some of the players that I knew were the better players in Tijuana. Getting an opportunity to play against them was incredible. And then this opportunity came about. It was just coincidence that the team he was coming to play on a weekend happened to be the team that I was playing, that we were the team that they got to play against. But it was a big deal for the people that heard that he was coming down to pitch an inning. There was a lot of people in the stands to go watch him, and it was pretty incredible.
So if you remember, and we're talking with Benji Gill, a great conversation with longtime major leaguer Benji Gill. We're starting with his amateur days. I think it's so insightful. When you look back on your foes, and as you said, a lot of the talented players, the men that were playing in the Mexican League when you were just a high schooler at Castle Park High School, my guess is they weren't easy on you. My guess is they were proud of you, and they were excited that you were headed in the right direction. But my guess is they took it upon themselves to push you and challenge you as a player whenever they took you on. Am I right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I was playing in I was, what would you call the other league, the kids league, right? And they had heard that I was a successful, a talented player, but if anything, they wanted to show that, especially the other teams, right, the rival teams, that I didn't belong there or that I shouldn't belong there. So yeah, absolutely, they were pretty hard on me, and on my own team, they broke me in pretty good.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. I mean, I totally understand why that's a good thing. And, whether it's playing up or whether it's playing against professionals in that setting, walk me through being a first-round pick. There is the part about playing across the border, and then there's the part about playing at Castle Park High School when the Rangers make you the, 19th overall pick in 1991. What was that experience like? What do you remember about being selected and all that went into it?
I'll tell you what, it was a very cool, unique experience. Obviously, you only get drafted. Well, I guess a few guys get drafted more than once, but for me, it was once in a lifetime opportunity, and didn't have a lot really to go off of, because at the time, in the South San Diego area, there had not really been a real high draft pick from the Chula Vista area or even south of that. So it was pretty unique. I think I did the best I could to prepare myself for the situation of having expectations, right? The expectations that are put on you as a first rounder. And I think playing in Tijuana, playing against older people and hearing some of the things, the advice that I got from the older players that had played a little bit of pro ball. My cousin, who had played in the minor leagues up to AA with the Orioles and A's, also helped quite a bit in preparing me on how to handle the expectations of being a prospect. But it was very cool. But like I said, it was very unique because I didn't have a lot to go off of as far as somebody sharing with me, or hey, it could have happened to a teammate a few years earlier or somebody that I knew. I mean, the part of being a high draft pick was definitely something foreign.
Great conversation with Benji Gill, of course, a first-round pick, as we were talking about back in the early 90s. How much of you was a pitcher? I mean, you hopped up on the mound and touched 94, as legend goes. Look, I watched Mateo, your son, pitch and throw into the 90s very easily. Was there any chance you wanted to pitch, or was that just because you were so athletic?
You know what? I recall very well that there was one organization that wanted to draft me. I think it was Seattle. Seattle told me, hey, you know what? I think they ended up getting Sean Estes, left-handed pitcher. But I don't remember if he was 8th pick, somewhere in that neighborhood, 8th, 9th pick. They had told me, hey, if you decide to pitch, we will take you with our first pick. And I was like, oh, I'm not ready to pitch every day. I mean, I just enjoyed hitting too much and being out on the field every day. There was no way at that point in my career that I could sit down 4 days out of 5 and be comfortable. So I figured at the time that if I didn't hit, or if I had some other kind of injury that wasn't to my arm, I could always fall back on pitching. But I absolutely love being out on the field and contributing both offensively and defensively. So that was kind of like my safety net, if you will.
That's a good safety net, man. Nobody has that. You know that. Very few people have that. Tell me about your journey as a father of a prospect. I'm not skipping your whole career. I want to go back and talk about parts of it.
No,
but please share with me your journey as a father of a prospect. Obviously, in the Nolan Arenado trade, your son Mateo, St. Louis third-round pick a couple of years ago, now as a Rocky. So please share with me, the last 3 or 4 years heading into the draft, advice you were passed along, how much you were able to live through him, how fun it was.
It was absolutely awesome. I don't know if the word is live through him. I got to recall a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
Things kind of came back to mind of seeing him go through, talking to the scouts. I mean, to be honest with you, I was kind of wasn't a part a lot of talking to the scouts back then. And this time around, I was more involved talking to the scouts and talking to the recruiters, and it was an enjoyable process. I was just so proud of him, seeing how he handled himself. I believe he handled himself better than I did, that's for sure. I gave him as much advice as I could. Some of it taken, some of them not always taken, right? And that's just being the situation, father, son, and a teenager, right? But I thought he did an outstanding job handling himself in that situation, and just watching him play and watching him develop, watching him make the adjustments that we all have to make at one point or another in our careers. Even though his career is young, I think he's a very mature ball player.
Timber Creek High School, Fort Worth, Texas. At that time, a third-round pick of the St. Louis Cardinals. I watched him play in Jupiter in 2017. I watched him go to PG National. I watched him play up in Jupiter in 2016. What do you recall about his travel ball journeys? High school's one thing, as you well know, but travel ball is kind of a working man's version of what you did when you went to Mexico. What do you recall about some of his more challenging travel ball experiences?
Yeah, I think the PG Nationals was really good. The underclass, and then the year that was his year, incoming senior year. I think those all great experiences. Anytime, in fact, the tournaments in Atlanta, I think were great. To be able to coach them in those tournaments, there was, incredible amount of talent. Some of the teams and the players that they face, it's overwhelming, really, to see what Perfect Game has done to where it brings together so much talent. I mean, that just did not happen back when I was in youth baseball. It just didn't happen. I mean, you sometimes didn't even play with some of the other better players in the state. I mean, I remember being the first couple years of the area codes, where we used to have to go to Lodi, and that was such a big deal because you got to play with some of the best talent in the state. But very rarely did you play with anybody like in the region or anything like that. And it's just awesome to see how they can bring together the best players in the country, so they can kind of see where they stand talent wise. I think it makes players hungrier, and I think it makes them, keeps their feet on the ground. I think it's awesome.
You can see the font if you're listening on radio. I'll re-identify Benji Gill, Tomateros de Cagliano, a very successful championship-level manager. The coaching travel ball, the managing young men. What do you enjoy about the most being a leader now in this sport?
I'll tell you what, it's just sharing the experiences that we've lived, but not so much like, hey, when I face this guy, I don't think that's as important as, hey, this is what I was thinking in this situation, or this is how I prepared for this situation, or this is how I failed, or I didn't give myself the best opportunity at success because I didn't think about this, or I didn't prepare for this. And I think teaching the mental side of it for sure is the most important thing, and the life lessons that the game gives you, because I know that a lot of people talk about their sport being similar to life, but I don't see how one compares to baseball, because it's day in and day out. And much like in life, you get opportunities to do something positive, or to get something positive out of the day, day in and day out. I think it's too many times. I think guys are hard on themselves when they're going bad, and I think they want to try and overlook things when they're going good, and that's one of the things I try and share with young players, and even with the team in Calican, with players that, I have some guys that have played in the big leagues for 5-6 years, and sometimes you have to kind of bring them back to keep them grounded and balanced, so that they are able to continue to have success day in and day out.
Incredible insights from Benji Gill. Final question for you, and maybe it's selfish, maybe it's not, I'm not sure. If you're watching on the PGTV app or you're watching on Perfect Game TV, you'll see over his left shoulder a celebration of a world championship for a team in 2002 with the Angels that won the World Series, in which, by the way, Benji was 8 for 12 in that postseason. Let me say that again, 8 for 12 in that postseason. I called your best offensive season ever. You played more than 100 games. You slugged almost 500 in 2001. You had a very long career that lasted more than 600 games. But those 2 years in a row in that world championship, as now selfishly one of the voices, I have to go there too, of the Angels. What were those memories like?
Awesome. Just a tremendous group of friends, I think, is the best way to put it. We believed in ourselves when honestly, it's hard to say that nobody else believed in us. Why would they believe in us? I think the year before we finished 19 games. I don't remember if it was 19 games under 500 or 19 games or 21, or I don't know. It was something ridiculous. 30 games back and 19 games under 500.
I remember.
And we started the season I think we started 6-14 the next year. Playing against within our own division to begin the season. I think other than the first series was against Cleveland, where Bartolo, I think, might have thrown a shutout against us. And then we went off to play our own division and did not get off to a good start. In fact, at the time, I think it was the worst start in organization history. But we never gave up hope, and we never stopped believing in ourselves. We knew we had a great offense. We had a tremendous bullpen. The coaching staff was as good as I've ever seen or heard of. And our pitching staff, our starting pitching, did enough to keep us in ball games, which is all you can ask for. It was just, we had a blast. We just enjoyed. I mean, I remember there was days where I'd hang out with my position players. There's other days where I'd hang out with Molina brothers and Ramon Ortiz and Palmero. I mean, it was just, for me, if you said I had a couple friends that were maybe a little tighter, but I hung out with everybody, and had a great time with everybody. It just seemed like it's sometimes in teams you have small groups that don't really mix with the other groups, and that just didn't happen on that team. It was very unique. It was memorable. I'll never ever forget it, and I mean, by far the greatest experience of my career.
Benji, thank you for your time. Your memories as an amateur, certainly as a father, and a brief snippet of a memory of being a world champion. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. And I see you're going to have on the program Scotty Eyre later today.
We are, yeah.
Tell him so he was an ex-teammate. He was a good friend. And then we got to face him in the World Series. So maybe don't rub it in too much, but remind him I got a hit off of him.
I'll absolutely. You know who's signing one of my checks. I'll absolutely rub it in. You know better than that. Yeah. Thank you, Benji. I appreciate it.
All right. Blessings. Take care and be safe.
Benji Gill, the outstanding longtime major leaguer, certainly loved watching his work. Again, I was the radio announcer in 2001 when he had an incredible year. As I said, 104 games, slugged .477. They needed him. He stepped in. He played all over the field. Remembering and certainly focusing on the amateur part of your game. This is the only show devoted to amateur baseball on the Perfect Game TV app or listening on SiriusXM MLB Network Radio.
Welcome to the future. Welcome to PG Tech. When the best and most impactful in an industry join forces, you, the athlete, win. This is PG Tech, a partnership driven by Perfect Game and K-Motion, an innovator in human motion learning, along with several best-in-class companies elevating technology and athlete development. It's a combination of state-of-the-art technologies, 3D body measurement, high-speed cameras, launch monitors, radar, bat sensors in the PG Tech cloud, guiding players, coaches, scouts, and recruiters in making their best decisions. PG Tech will help athletes and instructors achieve their goals by understanding the cause and effect of a player's movement to improve the development of that player. In other words, this is the best answer. Welcome to the future. Welcome to PG Tech.
MLB Roundtrip with Perfect Game, and whether you're watching on the PGTV app, we love that it's out, by the way. We're so proud that you're watching on your device or watching on your smart TV or listening on MLB Network Radio on SiriusXM this evening. Glad to have you with us on this Sunday. So we're about a couple of weeks removed, and it was just an amazing event. But then again, for Darren Larson, who for so many years has led amateur baseball in Texas. Amazing events are kind of his day-to-day. I mean, he just does it all the time. Houston baseball tournaments, massive event, nearly 700 teams a couple of weekends ago, which brought us to Darren, which brought us to want to talk to Darren, which, you know, as PG has brought him on board as a vice president, yet his leadership continues, and Darren joins us now. Darren, thanks for hanging out with us. First of all, we that listen, you know, big picture, 20,000 feet in the air, want to kind of know your beginnings. What brought you into youth baseball? What brought you into wanting to build a better tournament than anybody else so the families and the athletes could have a good experience? Take us back to the beginning, Darren.
Oh, it was probably back in 2002. Had a little, my son was Lee, who's works for Perfect Game now, also was, of course, playing select baseball at the time. And just like everybody else, we're like trying to figure out a way to pay for it, right? And so we used to do fundraising tournaments and host some events, and we do a couple a year. And one of my business partners on another venture talked me into taking over 3 high school baseball fields. And so that kind of led into getting a contract with Big League Dreams. They're a sports park around the country, mostly on the West Coast, a couple places in Texas. And I kind of played around with that. We probably ran 5 tournaments a year. And it was just, I was always, one of my pet peeves when we were playing is tournaments were always an hour behind, and there wasn't really a good reason why they were behind in the middle of the day. So those first 5, 6, 7 years, we really concentrated on making sure our umpires did a good job, making sure they kept the games on time. There's nothing worse than showing up at 1 o'clock for a 2 o'clock game and having to wait till 3 o'clock to play. So it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes we are running late, but like we do our best to really make sure we're on time the best we can. And so that's kind of how we got started. And then it just kind of turned in from 5 or 6 tournaments a year to like every other weekend. And then every other weekend turned into every week. And so we found out our customers were still playing on those off weekends and they wanted to play with us. They just didn't have that option. So we just kind of jumped in both feet and kind of got after it. And just kind of the last 10 years has been pretty much every weekend.
Incredible story of a journey of an amateur baseball man who passionately has built a franchise, Houston Baseball Tournaments, HBT, now a vice president with Perfect Game. And so I ask you, before we kind of dive in on what happened a couple of weekends ago, I ask you, why was Perfect Game the right partnership for you? You were, killing it. You were doing amazing things. What did they bring to the table for you? What do you bring to the table for them, if that makes sense?
I really after talking to Rob Ponger and the guys, and especially Jerry Ford, it's really about baseball, especially for Jerry. Everything comes back to it's for the kids, it's for the love of the game, basically. I know that's gets kind of beat in the ground sometimes, but anybody that spends any time talking to Jerry Ford on the phone knows it's about the love of baseball. And so it was really, I like the vision of what they were trying to do. They've been the monster or the big player in the high school market, helping high school players move on to the next level. And they've been trying for several years to move into the younger ages. And that was really my specialty. And so I really wanted to help them bring what they do in the high school market and to the high school players to the younger players. And really have it be about the players and trying to give them a better value for the money they are spending. Because it is expensive to play like baseball. So we try to give them the most bang for their buck, for lack of a better word. So just giving them a good experience. And I thought Perfect Game with what they're doing with Diamondcast, with their scorekeeping app, with the video that they're bringing out here shortly for the games, for the younger ages and for the older ages, as well as like what you do on Perfect Game TV. There's nothing like it out there for youth sports in general. So I just love the whole thing that they were trying to get accomplished, and I thought I'd be the right guy for them.
Darren Larson is joining us, vice president with Perfect Game, but for a couple of decades almost, Houston Baseball Tournaments, great youth events, and certainly, the evolution. So last year was weird, and I mean that respectively, with all that we went through in our globe with those that might have gotten ill or lost their lives. So last year was a challenge as people could get out and as people could travel, and it opened up a little bit. Even last summer at some point, it started to open up a little bit. How excited were those families? How excited were those faces of the youngsters, whether it be a very young person or a 14-year-old, just to be playing catch and being active on a field? How cool was that for you to see?
It was incredible. We spent a couple months there because in Texas, we were really shut down half of March, April, and May. And sometime in April, we were getting requests and even playing around with ideas of like, how do we do 5-on-5 kickball games, get the kids out of the house? Parents were begging for something. And so when we finally got the green light to start playing tournaments, the first day was kind of weird. It was a little bit like everybody's kind of creeping around the park and not really knowing what to do. And then the second day, it was kind of back to business as usual. I mean, I'd say the spectator wise, we were probably at like 50% of normal spectators the first day. And then we were probably well over 100% the second day, which was kind of crazy.
Amazing stuff with Darren Larson, who has done such a great job helping to grow Perfect Game's presence in the youth space in Texas. Look, when you've done it this long, and in the past it was with USSSA and now with Perfect Game, you've touched lives no matter, what the initials are that you have and how you're doing your work. So I ask you, having done it for 15, 16 years, you got to remember somebody when they were 10, 11, and 12 who's now making their money playing baseball. And that's got to be very, very cool. How cool is that you've provided a platform for guys that have gone on to college and professional baseball?
I mean, you see it all the time. I mean, you look at the guys like you look at all the players, especially like there's a list. I mean, there's thousands of players that have spent their time playing in tournaments and then now they're playing in the big leagues. And it isn't. Bryce Harper used to travel to Houston all the time to play.
And you remember him?
Yeah, I mean, he's a little bit older, or the same age. I mean, I think he's 1 or 2 years older than my oldest son, Lee. And it was always, you'd hear the stories and you'd go watch, and he'd fly in and play. And even at 10, 11, he was still a beast. And so it was definitely those types of things. You kind of think back and like, okay, you don't always peak at 10. And so a lot of times you think they're going to peak at 10, but that's not always the case.
So I'm going to ask you about something a little bit more technical, but I think it's interesting for baseball families or baseball fans that are outsiders on the youth game. Maybe their child is now an adult and they're past it, or maybe they have younger kids or not parents at all. But it's that 13U age group, Darren, where you kind of have the jump to the 60-90, right? You have the bigger diamond and the bigger space. Explain to me kind of how athletes make that decision, whether they kind of hang at the more traditional Little League distance, where you'd certainly see a 12U game, or they jump to that 60-90. Explain to me how you differentiate where you place teams and assign them.
Some of it's the parents. I mean, sometimes they're just not ready to jump into that bigger field. I look at my younger son, because that's the first time through when you're with your first child, it's always kind of a blur. And you may not always do the right things by your first kid, especially if you're a dad that played a little bit of sports. And my second son, who's 22, that's playing baseball in Louisiana right now at a small school. He was one of the bigger kids up until like 10, 11, 12. And then at 13, all of a sudden he couldn't run. And so, I mean, he was kind of he was like 50th percentile from 13 to 15. And then right into a sophomore, it was about ninth grade sophomore year where he finally grew into a beast again. And so sometimes it just takes a little bit of time. You got to be patient with it a little bit. And I remember watching him he would switch between shortstop and right field, and I would have him in right field. And all of a sudden one day the ball gets hit in the gap, and like watching him run for the ball was painful. And so, because he was just going through puberty and just lost 5, 6, 7, 8 steps, not one step, he lost 10 steps. And it was probably that way for like a year. So, I mean, and then he went on to be like one of the better runners in high school. He's like a 6'8" runner, weighs 205 and about 6'1". And so just, it's definitely crazy. I mean, you just got to keep plugging along and then and then not give up just because your kid's a late puberty kid. I mean, a lot of the early puberty kids don't end up playing, and then the late puberty kids, they end up being the studs in high school a lot of times.
It's an interesting way to look at it, and you see that space different than a lot of us that are only watching the prospect game, in freshman, sophomore, junior. Here's an interesting convergence of events, and I want you to comment on, because you're a huge part of it, and then Jerry Ford and his vision's a huge part of it. And here's what I'm talking about. I remember a couple of years ago at the All-American Classic, Darren, and we're talking with Darren Larson, a vice president with Perfect Game and the founder of Houston Baseball Tournaments, a monster in Texas, but really the entire Southwest. Jerry said, I want to grow the 13 and 14U age group. We need to. Coaches are watching that age group. And he pounded on the desk and he said very clearly, we need to have showcases of that age group. Okay? Boom. It's happening. You have All-American games, 13, 14, and 12U select festivals. Then there's you. Now you partner with that development of those age groups in the showcase and All-American world. And then the man who runs the best events, especially in your region, at that 12, 13, and 14U age group, I kind of see this convergence of events. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So
does that make sense?
I think so. And a lot of what Perfect Game's been about, like I was looking at we just ran that super regional a couple weeks ago, right? And
yeah,
like I had a friend from Washington bring his kid down and his team down from Washington State, and like my son, who was an all-state baseball player, just a really good player in high school and then going into college. I mean, he wouldn't have been good enough at 13 and 14 to play in that tournament I just had in the major division. He would have been a AAA player, a AA player. And so by what Jerry's done, by allowing us to go and do the lower, more recreational ages of the AA and AAA teams, as well as the elite player, it's allowed those guys to still develop their skill while they're going through puberty, and so they don't lose the love of the game. If he had to just play against the top guys every weekend, he may have just said, like, forget this. I mean, he's a competitive guy, but like he was a foot shorter. And now he's one of the stronger, faster guys and all through high school. And so giving those guys, we want to give everybody a chance to play at the AA level, the AAA level, as well as the elite major level. And that's really what Jerry's striving for by bringing me on.
It's incredible. Those two events coming together, the two forces coming together. You guys talk about growing the game. I don't think that's actually ground into the ground. I think when I watch people like you and Jerry do it, I believe it. And I don't have cynicism about it. I want to ask you about a couple of big events, and you don't have to be specific, but I saw about the belt wars that are coming up. I saw about, of course, later on the Invitational National Championships. What do you have planned over the next couple of months?
It's crazy. Well, of course, we had the big freeze, right, for 2 weeks in Texas. First time in 15 years that we had to cancel 2 weekends in a row. We had 375 teams that February 27th weekend, and then we followed that up with 689 teams the following week. And we did all the work for the 700 teams while we were doing the other event with almost 400 teams in it. So it was kind of crazy. So like this weekend we're small. We're like 150 teams in my event. One of our other PG directors in town's got 160 teams playing. Next weekend there'll be 400 teams in the Houston area playing perfect game. And then April 10th will be really big. I think that's that Belt Wars one you were talking about. There'll be 400 teams playing in Houston. And then the next big national event that we have, where we'll have teams come in from all over the country, will be Memorial Day weekend. I'm expecting 400 teams in that event. I've already been hearing from MVP and ZT out on the West Coast about coming in. I know there's some New Mexico teams coming in for Memorial Day weekend, so we're hoping to get the word out for that tournament to have it be almost not as big as what we had a couple weeks ago. But I think the talent level in our major divisions will be pretty close. So that'll be really exciting too.
Incredible stuff, my friend. Thank you for your insights. We had someone, Jim Jenks, who was there with a fine shooter. I wish I could have been there. We'll be there. Congratulations on all you've done through a generation of baseball players. And thanks for making PG better and helping to grow the game, Darren.
No, I appreciate you guys. You guys do a great job with this PG TV.
We're learning. This is Darren Larson. He's a VP with Perfect Game, doing great stuff. And in his 16th year with the large-scale tournaments, it's Houston baseball tournaments. What a monster in the space, understanding the space of youth and amateur developmental baseball. We'll have more as we continue. You're watching on the Perfect Game TV app or listening on ESPN and also on MLB Network Radio on Sirius XM.
Defense, you can always make a play. Create it in your mind. You're always trying to time when the ball is hitting the bat. Wherever I am, I know where it is. One, two, three. I'm gonna have to start jumping. Nothing more satisfying than making a big play.
MLB Roundtrip with Perfect Game, the only show devoted to amateur baseball. You're watching this on your Perfect Game TV app. That's exciting. We're excited about that. Go grab it in your app store if you haven't. Grab it on your Apple TV if you haven't. Or you're listening right now on MLB Network Radio on a beautiful Sunday night. And this is a guy that's chasing into your hearts in Major League Baseball. Jac Caglianone joins us out of Tampa, Florida, Plant High School in the middle of his senior year. A Perfect Game All-American, one of the top left-handers in the country. Hey, Jac, thanks for hanging out with us. I guess I'd love to know what the very latest in your baseball journey is. We saw you all through the summer last year get out, healthily play, and you did really well, Jac. But what has gone on in your senior year baseball-wise?
Everything's going really great. We're on a 3-game win streak right now. everyone on the teams, their bats are starting to heat up. So putting everything together and really fine-tuning everything. I got to throw yesterday. I threw 4 innings, 7 or 8 strikeouts, top 96, and also went 3 for 4 at the plate. We played in the Tony Saladino tournament, which is a big thing over here in Tampa, and ended up going 7 for 9 on the tournament. And it was a big, it was exciting, especially because it was my last time playing it and everything like that, and ending it on a high note yesterday with a big win. Really tied it all together.
That's outstanding news. Congratulations. How are you balancing the social pulls and the academic pulls of being a senior along with your baseball responsibilities? How has that balance gone in your senior year?
The balance is great. Here in Tampa, at my high school, you have an option of doing online school or being in person. And I unfortunately got quarantined a couple times, so I was put out of school for a couple weeks. And the pace online and in brick and mortar was a little different, so I ended up staying online. So now I get to work out still 4 or 5 times a week and still practice and everything like that. I'm staying on top of all my schoolwork, and social life definitely comes last. I'm chasing something big here, so really baseball and workouts and family is my biggest priorities at the moment.
Well, and that's outstanding. This is Jac Caglianone, one of the top left-handed pitchers in the country. He's out of Florida and one of the top overall players. I guess we all kind of learned to do that, right? I mean, when we're, about a year ago, about a year and a week ago, this all changed forever, and you lost your junior year, at least the rest of it. And then we were all forced, and it's not that most of us didn't already spend time with our family, but we spent a lot more than we ever had, let's be honest. And so I'm guessing the transition and the choice you're making to stay a little bit more introverted, if you will, to yourself, safe, if you will, is maybe a little bit easier this time around. We've all adjusted to spending more time at home with our families, haven't we?
Yes, sir. I'm getting to work out middle of the day, wake up, do my schoolwork. So if I'm not at the field practicing or playing games, I'll be at home with my parents, catching up on their days, and being in the cages just one-on-one with my dad. So the introvert life has definitely become a bigger part of my life due to COVID.
Yeah, I understand. I totally understand. Your dad, Jeff or Jeffrey, what does he go by comfortably?
Jeff.
Okay, so your dad, Jeff, played college baseball at Stetson. So now he's a dad. I mean, he obviously had the experience like I did a long, long time ago. Talk to me about his impact on you and your day-to-day now where he can help you, what he's learned, certainly, and he might tell you, you've bypassed what I'm going to do or what I did. But tell me about how much he has guided you on the baseball side of things.
My dad's always been my biggest supporter. He taught me everything I know leading up to high school. He's always been there. He has definitely been the biggest mentor on and off the field. He's helped me a lot mentally. He's probably the strongest person that I've ever met. He's always been my biggest role model, and every day I strive to be better like him.
So what do you know about his journey as a baseball player?
He grew up in Pembroke Pines, Florida. He went to MacArthur High School and pitched there. He had offers from Georgetown and everything like that. He decided to go to Stetson for law school and for his undergrad, and played there as well. And after college, he started his law firm and ended up settling down in Tampa and raising me.
Yeah, good stuff, and a nice job. Remind me of your mom's name, please.
Joanne.
Joanne, and she was quite a basketball player at some point, right? A really good athlete, yes?
Yes, she had an offer to FSU for basketball, and it was kind of nice. She grew up in New Jersey, and then they moved down to Tampa, so she went to the same high school as me. She went to Plant and played at Plant, got the offer to FSU, and then ended up deciding to help my grandma work and stuff like that. So she's also definitely one of the biggest role models in my life, and she does the best she can. She always provides for us. She always she knows how to console me after a bad game, and she's the best mom out there, that's for sure.
Good stuff, talking about your mom, Joanne, and your dad, Jeff. So it's interesting, by the way, the name, the great Italian name, we say it right when we say Caglianone, or are we missing out by not emphasizing the E at the end?
It's just Caglione.
Caglione is all, okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
there's no Caglione, none of the E at the end, huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Maybe at some point it was, maybe a couple generations back, right?
Yes, sir.
That'd be too good. Hey, Jack, thanks for hanging out with us. This is Jac Caglianone as he shares his journey as a baseball player. So, playing with a very fun, spirited, and talented team, the FTB San Francisco Giants scout team. You play in the position, you play in the field, you also pitch. So you got a chance to play with talented guys, high-level, high-talent guys. What's that like? I mean, it's a great travel team. Why did it suit you?
Playing for FTB, the Giant Scout team, it was really unreal. Everybody there really wanted to compete. I was with Chase Petty, Jay Allen, Anthony Urcity, Tamar Johnson, and Michael Braswell, and all those guys. They, we were loaded with talent. Every time we went out to play, it was kind of always cool because we're playing with all these D1 guys, these future MLB guys, and it felt kind of like a futuristic all-star game every tournament.
I love that, a futuristic all-star game. And it's rare when you're as elite as you are, right, that there's any given day that you are the third or fourth best player on the field. To me, that if that were me, that would make me work harder, make me better, right?
Yes, sir, 1,000%. It's always what I liked about it was nobody ever knocked each other. Everyone was always picking each other up. Everyone was getting real hype when, Jay would go yard, which did very often this summer, or when people would just be shoving on the mound. It was just a great atmosphere all around.
Jac Caglianone, I want to talk to you a little bit about pitching for those that are watching on the stream. You don't have to grab a baseball unless you have one right there with you. But working from the left side, boom, he does. This is going to be even better. So for those of you listening, just listen close. He's going to be very descriptive. Reintroduce me. I know who you are as a pitcher, but there's a whole lot of people listening that don't. So introduce your pitches pitch by pitch. You can maybe show the grips, but I always ask pitchers to make them human, right? If this pitch, this four-seamer, were human, what would be the characteristics of this pitch? So kind of take us into the room. It's a cocktail party, obviously non-alcoholic because you're below age, but the cocktail party and the invited guest are your pitches. Introduce each one to me, please.
The good old go-to. It's a little scuffed up ball, but it's all right. It'll work for now. Obviously, the four-seam fastball. Just kind of keep my thumb tucked underneath there and let it ride. There's some days where it'll run more than others. Usually I'll feel that out in the bullpen and end up getting a feel for it once I step out to the mound. My second pitch is going to be a curveball. You kind of grip it like a little offsetted two-seam with your fingers close together. You throw it based off your fastball. At the end of it, you're just going to want to finish it. Third pitch, the cutter. It's kind of like a hybrid grip. Some people tell me it looks more like a slider, but this one you really want to throw more so as a fastball than your curveball, and you just want to have a very little tilt towards the end of it when you're at your release point. And my last one's the changeup. It's really just an offset two-seam, and I really put pressure on my middle finger when I extend and pronate. And yeah, those are my four pitches that I got.
Well, I've enjoyed getting to meet them at this gathering. Which pitch right now is your very best friend?
I'd have to go with the cutter. It's a great out pitch. It just moves just enough to miss a barrel, and it'll be anywhere from around 85 to 88. On a good day, it's been up to 89 before. And after throwing that against my fastball, this thing comes in kind of at the same speed, and having it just drop off the table has helped me a lot.
And which pitch do you have to put in? I'm sure, when you were young, you weren't getting the belt or the spankings from Dad. It was probably just being put in timeout. Which pitch do you have to put in timeout the most? Which one do you battle with the most?
I have pretty great command over all my pitches. My last time, my curveball really tied in, which was really nice to have. There were just times where I'd cast it, so it would be kind of one of those that we'd tuck away and just stick with the cutter for a game and the changeup. But I'd probably say the curveball.
That's incredible. I mean, just to understand who you are as a pitcher, a guy who's still playing very solidly with the bat in his hand. When did you fall in love with this pitching? I loved it. My father did it. I didn't have your skill sets, but did it until they told me I couldn't do it anymore in the minor leagues. What is it that you loved when you fell in love with the concept of pitching, and when was that?
I'd have to say right when I started high school. I had a big growth spurt. I went from being around 5'9" to 6'2" my freshman year. And 6'2", being a lefty, everyone was telling me you got to get on the mound. And at first I was kind of skeptical about it just because I've always been really primarily like a big bat guy in the order. But the more I got on there, the more repetition that I had and the more I got to work on all my pitches was definitely when things started to click after throwing them in games and really seeing that how off balance I made hitters and how it felt, getting a fastball by somebody was really when I fell in love with the pitching aspect of the game. And ever since then, it's just kind of grown and taken off.
So I took a peek back. This is Perfect Game All-American Jac Caglianone spending time with us, a Florida commit, one of the top left-handers in the country. And what was it, 2016, you went to a PG-13U event, East MLK event. You were all-tournament. But you were 5'7", 115 pounds back then. You're a different guy now, right? So for me, if I'm going to take you back then until you pitched the other day and you touched 96 on the mound, what are some of the ways, besides pure growth, Jack, besides pure growth and the good Lord above, what are some of the ways you would tell me, hey, I increased my velocity because of, what would you say?
Definitely work ethic. What we do in the gym, it's really focused on agility and being powerful and explosive. We hit legs more than anything. Legs are the biggest part. I don't do any of the weighted ball type of stuff. So really it's been a good portion of my growth has been natural. But really, honestly, just long tossing every day, having those few days off, and lifting. Lifting's probably the biggest thing as well.
Jack, who do you like to watch pitch? Is there someone at the highest levels or one of your colleagues even? Either way, it can be someone in college, it can be a major leaguer, it could be a colleague. Who do you like to watch pitch where you say, hey, if I can grab their clips or watch them on YouTube or even watch a live game, I'm going to learn a lot when I watch this person? Who is that?
David Price.
Expand, please. Tell me more why.
Growing up when he was on the Rays and, winning the Cy Young, I believe in 2014. I'm not too sure, but
Sure.
Watching him, me and my dad would always sit in front of the TV and just watch as long as he went in the game. He just really his explosiveness. He was always one of those quick style pitchers, kind of like I am. And just seeing his mound presence and how dominant he was really what excited me the most. And ever since then, even when he left my hometown, it was kind of hard, but, I still follow him to this day. So watching him is always my favorite part.
Well, you're going to have fun this year. You have to stay up late. He's going to be back active. I know he opted out last year for the sake of his family, but I'm guessing he's going to get a little youth back after he had that rest. This is Jac Caglione, one of the top left-handed pitchers in the 2021 class. So the part of you that's still a hitter, that's still a big part of you, right?
Yes, sir. All
right, well, walk me into the box then and tell me some of the keys to your left-handed bat, left-handed arm, left-handed bat. What are some of the keys to your approach? What matters most in your approach?
To hit a ball hard, to really focus on a spot in the zone that you're waiting to see your pitch get thrown into, and really just looking for that pitch you can drive hard. I don't really think about home runs or anything like that. I always just think about producing and helping my team win. But probably my biggest thing, especially when you get down 2 strikes, is really just playing pepper with the baseball. You want to still have a quick swing. You want to choke up a little bit, and you really just want to drive the ball to all fields.
So as someone with length, and you have it, by the way, as someone who's taller, have you found you've had to be really disciplined in that area? You can get away with being a little bit longer as a pitcher. We know that. As long as you stay tall, you can be a little bit longer. You can't as a hitter. You can't, because it all is about you on the mound, right? So how have you stayed, for a guy who's gotten taller and longer, how have you stayed short and quick to the ball?
The more reps you do, the more you'll figure your own swing out. Everybody's different, but for the big guys, usually they always think, low pitches, they can't reach them and stuff like that. But that turns out that's kind of one of my things that I like to jump on. But definitely for bigger guys, no one's going to really want to pitch to you. They know you have power. They know you got some juice in you. So really just focus on the strike zone. Take your walks is the biggest thing. Staying out of 2 strike counts so you don't chase anything in the dirt. But the biggest thing probably is going to be just take your walks.
Got it. Be patient, zone up, and trust your hands. Let it travel deep. So who do you love to watch hit then? I mean, if you're still good enough to go 7 for 9 in an elite high school tournament, which is kind of ridiculous, by the way. But if you're good enough to do that, you still can rake. Who do you love to watch hit?
I really like Cody Bellinger. And definitely Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso went to my high school as well, so he was with us all fall hitting that plant. So watching him hits like really no other. He probably has one of the most powerful swings in all of baseball at the moment. And picking his brain and just being able to see his swing throughout last year and this year, it's just really insane. He's just really exciting to watch as well.
Jac Caglianone joining us, top left-handed pitcher, top hitter in the country. He's out of Plant High School in Tampa, Florida, perfect game All-American. I got to know 1 or 2 things you learned from him that you didn't know before you talked with him, because you know how priceless those experiences are. Not everybody gets that chance to hang out with one of the more popular players in the game, especially amongst guys in your age group. What are 1 or 2 things you truly learned from Pete?
Pete taught me to pick a zone out in the strike zone, just wait for a pitch to be thrown there. Another thing that he said was swing quicker, not harder. There'd be times where we would gas the machine up to probably around 95, 96, and I'd get too big to start off with. He would tell me some tips. He would really teach me how to just throw my hands, just really how to work it through the zone. And the biggest thing that Pete really says is Pete's always really an upbeat guy. Whenever you're around him, you'll never see him upset about anything. But besides hitting, he taught me a bunch of fielding drills. He taught me how to set up for a different type of pickoff at first. He's helped me really grow as an infielder. Sorry, that was really mostly it.
That's all right. That's enough. A lot of times guys will lock up the few that have had your experience will lock up and not remember what to share. That was incredible stuff, especially the pick a zone. I mean, that's head and shoulders. All of a sudden, other high school pitchers are done if you can stay disciplined to that. Hey, Jac, thank you very much for your time. Have a great rest of your senior year. Excited to see what happens with you in July. And if it isn't the right fit for you professionally, I know you're going to have an amazing time with Sully at Florida. Congrats on what you've done so far.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
This was great to have Jac on. Jac Caglianone, a young man out of Plant High School in Tampa, Florida. What a bright future. My goodness. By the way, did you see him holding the baseball? It disappeared in his hand. Understand that. I remember when I shook Sandy Koufax's hands one time, my hand disappeared in his. Big, strong, great for pitchers. What a gift. We'll come back, have more on the Perfect Game TV app or on MLB Network Radio on Sirius XM. This is Perfect Game, MLB Roundtrip.
You can tell right away if it's going to be a good glove or not. Broken in good, so when it breaks in nice, you want to use it for years. And I got the gold on it now. If you're into it mentally, you're getting your pre-pitch routine, defense doesn't slump. It doesn't come and go like offense. If you lock it in mentally, it's going to be there.
MLB Round Trip with Perfect Game. Darren Sutton, glad to have you back. And whether you're watching on your Perfect Game TV app or listening on MLB Network Radio on Sirius XM, this is going to be a great conversation because this is a gentleman that 617 times took the baseball in the major leagues and did so with a ton of effect. He's a world champion with the Phillies. He played for great managers. He was a Toronto Blue Jay, a Chicago White Sox, a Giant. He was a Cub. He's done so many amazing things, but I think what we really want to spend most of the time talking with Scott Eyre about is his giving back, his teaching of the sport, as he does so at Landrum High School in South Carolina. What a great program, by the way. They've won 5 state championships, and Scott spends time with us now. Hey, Scott, thanks for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it, my friend. What and when pulled you into the concept of giving back, of coaching, of leading young men at a fun and unique age, too? What pulled you into being a part of coaching at Landrum High School?
Well, we recently just moved from Sarasota, Bradenton, Florida to Columbus, North Carolina. And funny quick story, my brother actually found Landrum High School on Twitter via Daniel Little, the head coach. We both followed him on Twitter and sent a message after he followed us back. And you know, here I am coaching them now and having a great time. What a wonderful group of kids. The coaching staff is awesome. I get super excited talking about them because the kids work so hard. They don't complain when it's 35 degrees and wind blowing and it's really, really cold. They appreciate being on the field. They don't get to work baseball. They get to play baseball, is how Daniel Little, our head coach, says it.
So the Landrum Cardinals and who they are as a program and who they are as a squad, how much fun is it to work with young pitchers, you know, to be a kind of that clay portion of it? It's not like being a minor league coach or even a college coach. There are some very impressionable minds, brand new arms. What's it been like? What are your day-to-days like with them and checking back in each day, seeing what they learn?
Day-to-day is, right now it's been rainy, so we didn't have anything today, but for the most part, we get sent out a group schedule by the head coach. He sends out, you know, basically down to the minute what we're going to be doing every day, you know, with our dindies, which is defensive individual work, to who has bullpens, who has what kind of base. We do base running every day, things like that. We work on the little things. We're not a big powerhouse program where we're going to hit 50 homers in the summer, or this year, I should say, in the spring. You know, we put pressure on teams. We pitch. We make defensive plays. And so far, we are, I believe, 5-0 in regular season play.
And you win a lot. That means you're getting outs. How rewarding are those games, those moments? It's one thing to do, you know, your drills. It's one thing to throw bullpens, but then it's got to be that all-around nervousness that you probably didn't even have as a big league teammate, or certainly as a player. You're probably more nervous watching those young men pitch than you were pitching in the big leagues. Is that fair?
I do. I get more nervous in a one. We haven't played any really close games yet. We've played some opponents that were good, but we've kind of. Honestly, truthfully, I know maybe it sounds bad, but we've beat some guys down so far. It's been a lot of fun, but I know we're going to get into regional play here soon, and it should be some close, hard-fought games. And, you know, our kids are going to be well prepared. As a first-year coach here, you know, with a pitching guy that I'm helping out with, Justin Henson, he's got the kids ready to go as pitchers. You know, they know what they're supposed to do. The defense knows what it's supposed to do. We put a lot of pressure on offenses with our defense. We play well. I mean, we put a lot of pressure on defenses with our offense, excuse me. You know, we do a lot of fake bunts, fake steals, things like that. You know, in high school ball, you put pressure on the defense and good things will happen if the kids know what they're doing.
So take me back. Let's go back in that Wayback Machine and take me to Utah and help me understand who you were as a baseball player at Cypress High School. You chose to go to the College of Southern Idaho, and that's where it all started for you professionally after that. But who were you as a junior and a senior as a baseball player in high school? You look at these young men now. Who were you?
I was a quiet, scared to talk to most people, but talked all the time kid. I had a head coach in high school named Bob Fratto, who just retired last year, who had to walk around and make sure I was in class. I didn't choose to go to college, by the way. I got to go to college because of him. He knew the head coach at Southern Idaho, Jim Walker. Actually, Jim's son, Boomer Walker, is the head coach now there, I believe, still. I got the opportunity because I pitched well in a senior high school all-star game, and I got to go to college because of that. And I'm very thankful for all that Fratto did for me when I was a player. He was that coach that instilled in me, someday when you make it, he used to tell me, give back to the kids. And that's what I look at as coaching now. And I have a lot of fun coaching. But I was a scared 130-pound kid when I was in high school that threw hard, had a big old curveball. And once I got on the mound, though, I was not scared of anything, actually, as Fratto likes to tell everybody.
It's incredible. And so, as you say, you were fortunate enough to go play college baseball at College of Southern Idaho. This concept of making a living, and you made a wonderful one with a very long career, but this concept, Scott, of the evolution of who you were, the slender guy with some pretty good stuff. When did you realize, I may be able to do this? It's one thing to dream it. When did you realize you could do it for your job?
I think when I got drafted, I was actually at one of my best friend's house, Shane Anderson's house, playing basketball the day I got drafted. My mom had to call over there to tell me to come home to make a phone call back to Tim Halgren, was the scout that drafted me with Texas in 1991. I had no idea I was going to get drafted on the first day of the draft back then, like no idea whatsoever. And then when I got to the minor leagues, instructional league, you actually had a guest on earlier, Benji Gill, who was my first roommate back then in instructional league in 91. What an awesome guy he is. I haven't talked to him in a long, long time since then, but I got there that year and we had a pitching coach named Oscar Acosta, who's since passed away. But I also had Rick Knapp and some of those guys that, they saw a skinny little kid that had some potential. And they put forth the effort to make sure I knew what I was doing on the mound and how to approach to get better. So I was very fortunate back then.
And so things start to line up for you and you begin your pro career. I look back and I see all the things you accomplished, Scott, and it's incredible. It's a wealth of success. Anyone who pitches 600 times in the major leagues is truly blessed, but there's a reason. When you talk to young athletes now, whether it be you bump into a kid who's just signed and he's getting into camp and he's Scott Eyre stars in his eyes, he wants to play forever in the big leagues. What advice would you have for a prospect who's a senior in high school or in college or maybe early stages of pro ball? I think they'd welcome it. What advice would you have?
I tell them to work hard, continue their work ethic. We have a young kid here at Landrum as a junior this year named Evan Sierra, who's, in my eyes, got a chance to be drafted next year as a senior. I haven't told him that. I didn't tell his dad that either. He's a coach on the team, but if they watch this, they'll see it. So, I would tell him to continue the hard work that he does. He's a dang hard worker. And obviously to be the best on your team in high school or to go to college, you have to work hard. You have to do your classwork. You got to do the things in school that you have to do. But I try to tell kids to be themselves. Don't change who you are, because who you are is why you got where you're at. Don't try to get somewhere and then all of a sudden try to be, a Max Scherzer or a Greg Maddux if you're not that type of person. Be yourself and continue the hard work. If you do a certain drill and it looks silly, if you do something that's off the wall weird, keep doing it, because that's what made you good. That's what made you who you are.
Landrum High School has sent 30 players to college since 2000, and this is, as Scott Eyre just talked about, an undefeated team. They're off to a really, really strong start. As far as crossing over and you see young men deal with the challenges of the social life and of academics, anecdotally, it's got to be unique for you to see. You once were them. You understand what that's like to pull it all together. Friendships, buddies, girls, studies. And then, oh, by the way, I love baseball. I want to play baseball. How unique is it for you to listen to those stories and to guide those young men?
I feel like a kid myself listening to them tell the stories or talk about baseball or talk about their aspirations of going to college and things like that. Being the new guy on the staff here, I think the first probably maybe week and a half to 2 weeks, not a lot of kids said a whole lot to me. They didn't come up and approach me and talk to me. Some of them kind of made some jokes here and there. A couple of kids that, are more outgoing. Definitely not the younger kids, the C team kids. We have the middle school kids. They didn't say a whole lot to me the first couple of weeks. But now they all talk to me. Now I'm just Coach Eyre, and then now they're starting to ask questions about my process and what I did and how I went about it, how I approach things. And it is wonderful for me to be able to tell them my story and explain to them what happened to me and how it happened and my lucky breaks here and there, or if you want to call them lucky breaks, I guess, but I look at them and tell them I was 6 foot tall and 135 pounds when I graduated high school, and they don't believe me.
Incredible. Scott Eyre is joining us, pitching coach, South Carolina's Landrum High School, the baseball program there. It's a very strong program, state championship the last time there was a full season in 2019. I think a lot of parents listen to this, Scott. Nice.
I got my shirt on. Hold on.
Nice. For those of you listening on the radio, Scotty's showing off his state championship, his 2A state championship shirt. I think a lot of parents of, let's say, 14 or 15-year-olds will be curious, Scott, what should my son be mastering? This is different than the advice I asked you earlier, and I'm a former pitcher and a minor league pitcher whose dad pitched for 23 years. What should I be mastering? I mean, is it how do I evolve? How important is the second? How important is the third pitch? What are things I should be doing for arm care? I know it's a big bucket question, but pick any of it you want. If I ran into you in a Starbucks and said, tell me something, my kid's 14 and he's pretty good, what should he be mastering?
Fastball strikes, command of the strike zone, command of your mechanics. I'm a big believer in teaching a kid to control his emotions on the mound. High school kids are full of testosterone and full of emotional, the shoulder shrug and the overexcitement when they do something well. I try to instill in kids that I coached in Florida the last 10 years at St. Stephen's Episcopal School that, control your emotions. It's hard to do at that age. It's really hard to do. As a 16, 17-year-old kid, you make a great pitch and the guy gets a base hit and your first reaction is to go like this. To teach the kid to not worry about it and to remind himself that, okay, so I gave up a single. Now I can make one pitch and get a double play right out of this inning. No big deal. Those are the things that were taught to me by older guys when I first got drafted in the minor leagues and things that I never realized in high school that, man, if I do give up a base hit, I'm still one pitch out of this inning or one pitch to clear the bases. And you try to remind kids of the positives that are ahead of them and not the negative thing that just happened.
Scott Eyre, incredible insights, learning, understanding, certainly the evolution of a pitcher. I learned a lot. That was a cool answer. I'm going to go big leagues because this impacted you. I try and stick on amateur baseball, but your coaching, I think you might tell me I'm wrong, was certainly impacted by guys you played for through the years. So if I'm gonna throw out the following: Charlie, Jerry, Manuel, obviously different eras in your career. Buck Martinez, Dusty, some really interesting guys. Lou Piniella. Talk to me about managers and how they impacted you. Maybe one or two anecdotes where those were men in your life that guided you through your career professionally.
I mean, I would go straight to Dusty. I grew up a Dodger fan, so getting to play for Dusty for me was like a childhood fantasy. And then he was a guy that when I got traded there from Toronto to San Francisco in 2002 in August, he basically put me in win-win type situations, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
He didn't throw me in with the bases loaded, no outs. He put me in there in a situation to feel comfortable. And then once I was comfortable in a new place, he started putting me in tougher situations. The same with Felipe Alou and then Jerry Manuel was a guy that I had when I first started, and he was a big influence in my career actually. I was a starting pitcher back then, and I didn't do so well in the beginning of 1998, and I struggled with my command. I struggled with getting outs, for that matter, lasting long in the game. And instead of sending me to minor leagues, I don't know whose decision it was. It could have been his or Ron Schuler's, the GM at the time. But they sent me to the bullpen, and he put me in situations to learn and succeed. And from then on, I was a reliever the rest of my career. Then I got to Chicago, and I struggled a little bit with Lou Piniella, not because of him or anything like that. I put the pressure on myself. But then once I got traded to Philadelphia at the end of middle of the 2008 season, I got to Philly, and Charlie Manuel was so laid back and so, let's use the word chill. He basically said, I'm going to stick you out there as much as I can. And I was very grateful for the opportunity, and I flourished. And because of that, more so because of his confidence in me, which turned into confidence in myself. which is something I try to tell the kids. You got to have confidence in yourself and trust your infielders. And I think as pitchers, I think we forget that sometimes and try to strike everybody out. I know I did at some points. I got to strike everybody out. I'm coming in to face Ken Griffey Jr. and Adam Dunn back-to-back in Chicago. I got to get them both out, got to get them out, and you put so much pressure on yourself. You give up a hit to the first one, and then you're pretty much screwed on the second one. And different managers had different approaches. I had Felipe Alou for 3 years in San Francisco, and the man put me in game after game after game. And to this day, I'm forever thankful because of it. My elbow may not be so much. I can't touch my elbow anymore, but it's all good. I could have said no, but I said yes because he kept putting me out there. So, a manager can be the greatest thing for you.
Incredible. And those lessons you pass along to these young people, I'm sure there were others and coaches along the way that had huge impacts on you. Benji Gill, you mentioned him, was on early in the show, and he's another one who's giving back. He's coached travel ball, but now managing professionally in Mexico. And so he's dealing with young athletes too. He won a World Series championship, unfortunately, at your expense at one point in your career, but
Yes,
and your team's expense. But you won a world championship, and I'm going to ask you the same question I asked him. What does that feel like? You got a bunch of kids that won a state championship a couple years ago. They may tell you it's the greatest moment of their lives, and if they don't ever go on to do something like you did as a grown man, it will be the greatest sports moment in their lives. You had that unique perspective in 2008. What was that like?
It like I said, every kid that dreams of playing in the big league stands in his front yard and says, if you're a pitcher like myself, you stand in the front yard and you think, okay, 3-2, ninth inning, bases loaded. I'm thinking I'm Brad Lidge at the time, or back in my day, maybe Steve Howe for the Dodgers, or Tom Niedenfuhr, or whoever it was. And you think, I'm going to strike him out. And then when you're actually in that situation, mine wasn't the ninth inning. It was more the seventh or eighth inning game. I took my World Series ring to one of the first few practices, and showed it off to the kids. And some of the kids asked me what it was like, just like you did. And I said, kind of like winning a high school championship, just like you guys did. I never won a high school championship. We lost the state championship game my senior year in summer ball. And, as close as I ever got, I think in AAA, I think we came in second. We ended up going to the World Series, and lost. Like you said, with the Angels in 2002, we lost. So you get to that point and you realize, man, it's incredible to be there, it hurt in the heart for the most part to lose. And then in 2008, you go there and you win Game 5, and you're running in and you're ready to jump on a big pile. And I think it was probably 40 degrees, and I don't think anybody was cold because your whole body is on such a high that, your childhood dreams, your fantasies just came true. And I don't even know how to describe it any more than that. I'm not that best with words.
Sounds good to me, my friend. Sounds good to me. My father played 23 years, never got to win one, and so we lost him this year. But he was envious of guys like you. That was really why you play the game, right? I mean, he won his 300 games and did all amazing things, but he wanted one of those rings, and you have one of those. So thanks for sharing your stories. I love hearing about the Landrum High School journeys. We're going to keep watching closely. This is a real treat to have you on this show, Scott. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'd love to come back on. I love sitting talking baseball, and I'm super seriously grateful for the opportunity at Landrum High School. Actually, I hope some of the kids are listening. I told them I was going to be on tonight, so I hope they're listening, and I hope they do understand that I'm very grateful for the opportunity to work here. It's a good group of kids and a great coaching staff.
Yeah, we hope they're listening to on this beautiful Sunday night with baseball coming up right around the corner. Scott Eyre, what an incredible major league career at Landrum High School. They're right there fighting to win it just about every single year. Glad to have you with us. This is the only show devoted to amateur baseball, whether you're watching on the Perfect Game TV app or you're listening on MLB Network Radio on Sirius XM.
Defense, you can always make a play. Create it in your mind. You're always trying to time when the ball is hitting the bat. Wherever I am, I know where it is. 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna have to start jumping. Nothing more satisfying than making that big play.
MLB round trip with perfect game. What a fun show that was, and certainly glad you spent time with all of us. And outside of our deep dives into the archives, which is always fun, we want to thank Benji Gill and Scott Eyre for joining us. Here's what's great. They were competitors in the 2002 World Series against one another. Gill's Angels won it. Eyre went on in 2008 to win it with the Philadelphia Phillies, but they're both giving back. Benji Gill talked about his time as a travel ball coach and teaching now, coaching professionally in the Mexican professional leagues, giving back, passing on the game. And Scott Eyre, on that depth chart of coaches at Landrum High School in South Carolina, coaching pitching. And he loves the opportunity, went out of his way to make it clear. We really enjoyed having Perfect Game Vice President Darren Larson on. If this guy isn't thinking 5, 10, 20 steps ahead of what's going on in youth and amateur baseball, I don't know who is. Now taking advantage of his partnership with Perfect Game, coming into a lead role. It's you, the athletes, who win with this one. So a great conversation with the Texan, the wild and crazy, passionate baseball Texan, Darren Larson. And Jac Caglianone, checking in with him. So you think about who he was as a Perfect Game All-American. Got a couple of at-bats in the game, right? But here's a guy who now from the left side is up to 96, as he shared with us, 96 miles an hour. Where does that put him? I mean, where does that move him? Is that, into the middle to the upper tiers of the first round? What a great guest. What a bunch of humility. And the wisdom there, you young athletes, to talk about the fact, to make it clear that, look, my social life is great, but it can wait for now. He's got his electronics. He can talk like we are now virtually to his friends. But he said, I have a big opportunity coming up. So the wisdom, and it's not easy, that he has shown to do that. I love that conversation and love having these conversations each and every week. And certainly glad you found us, whether you found us on the Perfect Game TV app or you're listening to our great show. And we love our partnership with MLB Network Radio on Sirius XM. We'll talk again next week. This is MLB Round Trip with Perfect Game.
Welcome to the future. Welcome to PG Tech. When the best and most impactful in an industry join forces, you, the athlete, win. This is PG Tech, a partnership driven by Perfect Game and K-Motion, an innovator in human motion learning, along with several best-in-class companies elevating technology and athlete development. It's a combination of state-of-the-art technologies, 3D body measurement, high-speed cameras, launch monitors, radar, bat sensors in the PG Tech cloud, guiding players, coaches, scouts, and recruiters in making their best decisions. PG Tech will help athletes and instructors achieve their goals by understanding the cause and effect of a player's movement to improve the development of that player. In other words, this is the best answer. Welcome to the future. Welcome to PG Tech.